Welcome to episode number 107 of the Backlot 605 podcast. I am one of your hosts. I am Casey Kelderman.
I'm Brian Mensing.
And today, Brian, we are in the final week, unfortunately, of Kurt Russell month, the month that should be celebrated every November. It should be dedicated to the man, the myth, the legend that is Kurt Russell. And we are talking Big Trouble in Little China, 1986's cult classic from him and John Carpenter. We are joined by Robert Mehling from the Sioux Empire Podcast. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And before we get started into this really jam-packed episode, because we have a lot of box office news, some new coming soon, plenty of movie news this week for once. But first of all, I threw out Kurt Russell when we decided Kurt Russell month. The first person I reached out was to you, and you jumped on Big Trouble.
Oh, heck yeah. This thing is a required viewing. For some reason, I brought it up to my mom today on the phone, and she's just like, well, it's a Christmas movie, right? It seems like it's a Christmas movie because we watch it every December. And I'm just like, no, I just watched it, Mom. There's no Christmas stuff in it. But it is in the Mailing household, it was a Christmas tradition to watch this as a kid. So I have fond memories. I'll bring it up when we get into it later on. There were some parts, though, that I think in the cable version that we would watch on TBS or whatever was like re-airing it, that they cut out, because this is the first time I've seen like the theatrical run for the first time, just sitting down and actually like watching it. And there were some things that I was like, that happened?
Yeah, and we'll get it. I mean, does this movie maybe have a Die Hard quality to it, where it's like it's an action movie? Is it a Christmas movie? In the Mailing house, it's a Christmas movie. I like it.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's in the same. Wondering whether or not we'll ever determine whether or not it's a Christmas movie like Die Hard.
I will add it to my rotation just so it can be in that conversation with Die Hard as a Christmas movie.
There's not a single Christmas tree in that movie.
It doesn't.
No, there's no Christmas references whatsoever in this movie.
It's got plenty of shiny green lights in it. It counts.
Yeah, I think that's or maybe I'm just like Christmas cookies and it's bright and it's colorful. Yeah, it's like the Chinatown lights made Mom think of Christmas lights. So it was like, yeah, it's Christmas movie. But I swear it's like when I'd be back at home hanging out like over break when I was in college and stuff, me and my dad would be sitting there watching, oh, Big Trouble in Little China, and immediately like stop everything and watch that, So I think it would rerun in syndication on TBS or one of all the movie channels or something like that, like especially in the 90s, it seemed like.
Yeah, so we'll get into that for sure in the second half of the show. I cannot wait to talk about Big Trouble. That was the one I was looking forward to the most when we decided Kurt Russell month. But before we get into that, let's jump into the box office numbers for this week. This is kind of a wild week at the box office. When I saw these numbers come in here on Sunday as we're recording, I was like, that's not right. That's a one day total, right? No, that is the 3-day total for the box office this week. So kicking it off is remaining at number 1, the Vince Vaughn horror comedy Freaky, $1.2 million this week at the box office.
Any idea what the budget was for this film? Because I figure between week 1 and week 2, it's probably made its budget back in atypical horror movies, low budget films kind of thing, or at least if anything, it's coming pretty close. Just because I don't think there's a lot of marketing done for this movie. It just kind of popped up and it's like, by the way, we're in the theaters in a few weeks.
Brian, you get a cookie because the box office so far total that I have on this film is $9.2 million on a budget of $6 million.
Yeah.
5 of which goes to Vince Vaughn.
Oh, probably.
So again, I mean, and that goes to show the movies that we're getting in theaters right now are the lower budget stuff or the re-releases. And this movie at $6 million, that's not really a risk even now to throw that in the theater. Especially with no competition. You're still, again, like this movie did, you're getting your money back. And I think marketing for this movie didn't start until
maybe a month before.
Yeah, I was going to say 3-4 weeks beforehand. So I think they're doing pretty well. And I got to think they're sitting happy with this movie right now. And VOD sales are going to knock this up again here in the next 2 weeks. So
this year is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see what the Oscar nominees are for your consideration. Freaky.
Best actor, Vince Vaughn.
Yes.
All I know is if Sam has his way, it's going to be for the schmuckies. It's going to be freaky across the board.
Yeah, I mean that's what I've been hearing. Is Vince Vaughn is stellar in this movie. I haven't had the chance to watch it yet.
He's fantastic. I'll say again, I want to see Vince Vaughn and Jack Black do the white girl comedy because I think they would just crush it together.
Get a teen comedy with Jack Black and Vince Vaughn playing teenage girls. Let's do it.
Yeah, have them just do white chicks too.
Can't be any worse than the first one.
Right.
Number 2 then at the box office is The War with Grandpa. Under $1 million at the number 2 spot, $733,000. It did bump up a placement here. It was at number 3 last week. It is back at number 2. So one grandpa overtaking the other once again. But again, under $1 million at number 2.
Well, I was just about to say, I think this is the first time, probably in a long time, where we've only had one movie over $1 million. Otherwise, we don't typically see that under that 1,000 mark until we hit like number 5. So this just goes to show how rough this week was.
And what I think, and I could be wrong, that when Unhinged came out the week before Tenet, I think that was maybe the last time we had this big differential between, even the number 2 hitting that $1 million mark at the box office.
Definitely.
And then not too far behind is the number 3 film starring Kevin Costner, Let Him Go, $710,000.
So the older markets, like, we prefer to go see De Niro make a fool of himself as opposed to go see a semi, normal, realistic drama of Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you wanted that with Kevin Costner, you'd just watch Yellowstone. I mean, really, you get your fix that way.
I was going to say, or anything that Kevin Costner is in.
Exactly.
And that's
because I'm not saying he's not a bad actor, but there are those times where it seems like it's like, oh yes, he's doing that again.
No, I love Costner, but he is definitely one of those actors who always plays Kevin himself.
He plays the Midwest dad, and he does it well. Number 4 is the horror film Come Play, still sticking in this top 5. I'm kind of surprised with Freaky in the box office. This is sticking around, but a little over $500,000 this week, $550,000. Come Play.
Come Play.
I don't know if we have any thoughts on that, but then the next one is a little interesting here. The Santa Claus comes in at $461,000, and it's a re-release. It'll probably get a at least 2, 3, 4, maybe 4-week run in the box office here leading up to Christmas.
Oh, I picture we're probably going to get a pretty decent chunk of like retro films for the sake of the Christmas holidays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is Disney's first kind of push leading into that. It's the Santa Claus. They have another one coming out that we'll talk coming soon that at least relates sort of to Christmas a little bit. It deals with the often in the Midwest, what's around here, snow, frozen. I don't know where I was going with that. I was trying to lead up to it. It was not working.
No, not at all.
Not at all. But the box office this week, I think these results right here that we're seeing are unfortunately what it's going to look like, at least for a little while.
Especially through the holidays.
Yeah, and I'm very interested to see what Christmas weekend will look like, because we are getting at least 2 big releases in theaters. It'll be interesting to see what that's going to look like.
What big releases are we talking about here?
Just a little movie called Soul and Wonder Woman 1984.
Soul's not going to theaters.
Soul is going straight to streaming. Wonder Woman is going to theaters. Yes. Sorry.
In some of them. It's not even necessarily going to be a full, depending on what they get hashed out. So.
And who knows how many theaters will be open at that point. Theaters are closing in many states right now again. So I think we're going to continue to see that trend again. Mm-hmm. And I think the box office numbers are going to continue to go down here.
Yep. I as much as I want to see Wonder Woman on the big screen, with everything that's going on right now, it being such a tentpole movie that it is, I'm kind of glad I got HBO right now. I'd rather just watch it at home where it's safe and everything like that. You know, seeing some of these other movies in the theater, for me, I feel is less concerning when you know there isn't going to be a lot of people there. Something like Wonder Woman, you guarantee with what little capacity they have would sell out.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, I'll watch that one at home right now. And hopefully when it does eventually come to the big screen in a safe manner, I'd go see it.
Do we kind of just want to transition into that? Because that's the box office. Should we jump into the news and start with Wonder Woman?
Yeah. Speaking of that, hey, look, so we speak of is Wonder Woman is actually getting a dual release. That it is going to be in some theaters on December 25th, as well as streaming on HBO Max.
Amazing.
I agree. And that's what I say is because of the type of movie it is, I absolutely, like I said, I would love to see this on the big screen, but considering with everything going on, this is that sacrifice. And even Patty Jenkins has gone on record basically saying, obviously I want you to see this on the big screen. It's where it needs to be seen, but we want to get the love in the movie that we've made get it out to people. And this is even changed because we've got places like Cinemark and AMC that are full-fledged. They will not do a dual release film and are making exceptions to this to be able to release this in theaters, which kind of blows my mind.
Oh, it would be a terrible move on their behalf to not at least say, all right, fine, we'll take it. Like, we have to have something in theaters at this point. Like, we have to keep our doors open.
That would be a serious misunderstanding of the power dynamic there if they're going to be like, no, we're going to stand on principle. It's like, I'd understand why they do that, but no, I am so shocked in my lifetime just that I'm shocked that I'm seeing this in my lifetime, that something as big as a Wonder Woman movie that's like a big summer blockbuster is actually going to be like in my house streaming, no extra fee the day it comes out. That never... I figured that was like, honestly, before COVID, I just said that was like a decade away.
As just before you said that, it was like, yeah, you would have asked us that 10 years ago. We'd say like, no, the world would have to be ending. Oh, wait.
I mean,
about that.
Yeah. Brian, have you heard the news of 2020 yet?
I have.
So with this rolling out to HBO Max here in the next month, HBO Max has been pushing towards they're now on Amazon Fire Sticks. I think they went to Roku now. Like, they're catching up to what they needed to be streaming on. So they're getting ready for this movie because this is going to be massive for HBO Max. And I think as far as original content, they've had a few TV shows, and they had American Pickle, which kind of helped open HBO Max when that first started. But they haven't had a big release breakout on their streaming service yet. So like, they're looking for their Mandalorian, like on Disney, or the new Netflix series every 2 weeks to come out. So this is their go at it. Like, this is our way to catch up to Netflix and Disney Plus. And I think this will help. This will help. This is big. This is a big release here. And I don't blame them for wanting to do. I mean, I think this is the best case scenario in this situation, where you do the dual, release it on HBO Max. It's only there for a month as well. That is also part of this little deal. And we're going to release it in theaters on Christmas Day. And then it will go to premium VOD a month later. So I think that's definitely that's the way to go. You're hitting every little piece of where people can watch this movie. And yeah, I think in the times that we live in the COVID times, like, you got to get this movie out, and you're going to get those subscribers to HBO Max if you tell them you can watch Wonder Woman 1984 for free by signing up by HBO Max. So not free, but yeah. And especially on Christmas, people are still going to be getting together, and wanting a new movie to watch. I know many people would go out to theaters on Christmas Day or the day after Christmas, and I think this will be a nice substitute for people to stay home and watch it.
Oh, I agree. And if you really think about it, I mean, it's essentially the cost of a ticket. So, I mean, if anything, if you've got if you've got a family at home that wants to see this movie, it's actually going to be cost beneficial for them to be like, yeah, we're going to sign up. I mean, even if it's for a month, HBO is going to make a good chunk of money for it. And I don't know if they're doing any promotions right now, but even if they are, it's gonna definitely get people to sign up. Absolutely.
HBO Max has replaced HBO Go if you've got a cable subscription, and they are doing several free weekends and over the holiday period and stuff like that, to try and get people to sign up for HBO and therefore HBO Max through cable companies and stuff like that. So
HBO Max replaced HBO. Was it Now? Because HBO Go is like if you have the subscription and whatnot, so you can watch it on the go.
It replaced both Go and Now.
Okay. So I haven't had HBO anything until HBO Max came out. So
because I had through cable company, my day job, I got HBO Go with my free HBO, with my free having anything cable. And then Now was the thing where you could sign up for 14 something a month for just HBO. And then they got rid of them both and merged them. So now I get the added benefit of I have HBO. So that gives me HBO Max, but it also just magically gives me access to anything that's an HBO Max original without having to pay for another streaming service, which is nice.
Nice indeed. Okay. So let's see if I can actually make this work here this time here. All right. So the next thing we've got here and I know Casey's all so excited about this here, but is that for the new Scream 5, we finally have the new Scream title of, Scream. So,
Original.
Original. I mean, yes. I mean, come on. I mean, it's even on. That's what it is. It's Scream. Like, I agree. I've had some people that have made the comment of, well, hey, it's going to be like Halloween. Like we refer to Halloween as the 2018 Halloween. This is going to be the 2022 Scream. And granted, Casey's over here going, change the S to a 5 and make it so it says Scream that way and whatnot. I still think it looks wrong to do that, but just call it Scream 5.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like stylize it as 5 Scream or 5 Cream. But
that's my problem with it. It looks like 5 Cream.
But then just call it Scream 5. Like stylize that as the poster. But then it's just Scream 5. Yeah, I think this further leads into what this movie's gonna be like a parody of, or taking the meta take on. I think it is Halloween 2018. I think that's what we're going for, and calling this movie Scream. It opens up a lot of questions for me as a Scream fan, where this movie's going if we're not calling it Scream 5. And my biggest question is, are we going full Halloween 2018 and removing the timeline of the Scream series and foregoing everything that happened in 2, 3, 4 and just say the first Scream happened, now we're going to Scream 2020?
Maybe. I guess we'll see. I mean, the fact that it's very typical of the Scream series to kind of, put Hollywood on its ear and be very meta in regards to horror movies, that absolutely could be the case. I don't know if I've been living underneath a rock here and whatnot, but just when I pulled this up here and I realized that Jack Quaid is going to be in this here as well, actually makes me even more excited for this. So call it whatever they want. I'm still going to watch it.
Mm-hmm. Rob, what are your thoughts? Are you a Scream fan at all?
I followed probably like the first 2 or 3 of these movies, and then I was more of I'm a fan of the Scary Movie and series than I was the Scream series, but I especially the first one, I appreciated that was when it was very fresh, and like the meta was very, nobody else, you have to understand this was back in like the 90s and the early aughts, and the whole idea of talking out loud about meta was totally an alien concept. And this movie, or that series, just took it like head on with the first rule of a scary movie and the second rule. And then even Scream 2, it was just like the first rule of the sequel is you have to up the stakes. And yeah. So like you said, talking about it with with Hollywood on its ear and stuff like that. I'm almost wondering if they will do some kind of gritty continuity reboot kind of thing in order to comment on the whole, that trend we're seeing with the Halloween movies.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We just end up forgetting that 2, 3, and 4 ever happened, and Scream 5 will be the direct sequel to the first Scream.
Perfect.
If it was, that means Jamie Kennedy's coming back, baby, and I'm all for that.
Though I will say though is that if they did do that, I would be sad just because for the sake of Scream 2, I really enjoyed Laurie Metcalf and Timothy Olyphant's contributions to that film.
Yeah, I think that, and again, I love the Scream sequels. 3 is the weakest, but I do love 2 and 4. But it leads me to again, I have another hypothetical in this situation. I do think they're killing a main cast member in the first scene scene of this movie. I would say Arquette or Courtney Cox are biting the dust in the first 10 minutes. But I have a theory on who the villain might be. I think a certain now voice actor of Scooby-Doo fame, Mr. Matthew Lillard, the voice of Shaggy, will be coming back as Stu Macher as the villain in this movie.
I guess we'll see.
We'll see. That's my little prediction for this movie. We got about a little over a year before this movie comes out, so I'm stoked for it.
January 2022.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
All right, on to the next thing here. And that is that We Can Be Heroes, the new Netflix movie coming January 1st, the sequel to Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I never saw Shark Boy and Lava Girl. As much as I'm a Rodriguez fan, his kid stuff I am very blind to. You know what? Rodriguez likes to make his kids' movies every once in a while. It's not very hard for him to do that because his entire studio's at home. He could probably make this entire film budget in his garage, literally. Granted, I was kind of disappointed. There's no Taylor Lautner playing Shark Boy. Like, if you're gonna do this, bring back both the characters.
Yeah, what is he doing now anyway? Like, he's not. He hasn't broke out like his other 2 Twilight co-stars. I don't know why he can't be Shark Boy again.
Right? I'm too busy for Robert.
Adam Sandler wanted me in his other movie.
Hey, I like The Ridiculous Six, as stupid as it was.
Oh, horrible movie.
So you're saying January 1st, you're going to be all on top of this here, Casey.
I never loved Shark Boy and Lava Girl as a kid. I watched it a couple times growing up, but I was never the biggest fan of it. I do like the Spy Kids series. That was my kind of go-to for the Rodriguez kid stuff. But yeah, Kayla loves Shark Boy and Lava Girl. It was more of the Taylor, like as a kid, she had a crush on Taylor Lautner. So I think the fact that he's not in this now, it leads a better chance of us not having to watch this movie, which I am a-okay with because this does not look very good. And it also the plot of this movie is so weird, especially since this is aimed at kids and kids who grew up on Shark Boy and Lava Girl. Now you have to imagine that Shark Boy and Lava Girl banged and had a kid. Like, that's just so weird to me. I don't know why you would want to put that in our minds.
It's been a long time since Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and they had to grow up and become adults.
I understand that. It's still weird. No, I'm not excited for this, Brian.
Yeah, inside, you're just like, this is my number 1 movie, January 1st, 12:01. I'm going to watch this.
If nothing else new is out, I will probably watch it. But
wow.
Yeah.
Listen to his enthusiasm.
Yeah. Just apparently, if there's no other media, if like a satellite was taken out, so there's no YouTube in North America, and all other internet is down, and I'm on a desert island, I guess.
Then maybe I'll watch it.
Even then, at that point, he'd be like, did all of my backups for everything that I did for the sake of the podcast get completely obliterated because he'd rather listen to himself talk than watch this?
So that's what we're saying. The world has to come to an end for anyone to want to watch We Can Be Heroes.
Remember what we said about the world ending about that.
Right? All right. On to the next thing here. We've got Judd Apatow looking to make a movie for Netflix as well. His feature, what this is his pandemic movie now. That went away. There we go. Yes.
I took that away. I want to see Mr. Apatow's lovely beard. There.
You want to see his lovely here.
It's majestic.
Boom,
he has a majestic beard.
Oh, it is nice.
He has a good beard.
Oh, I could get lost in that.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Yeah. For the comedic man that he is, he's a good looking man. No. But yes, the fact that he is set to make this will be his first contribution to Netflix. When you get a lot of these big time directors, producers, and something like that starting to get into the streaming game. But yeah, it sounds like he's got a pretty good thing in the works here. I guess I don't remember when it's supposed to. I don't think obviously they've even started filming. I think he's just started writing. But what do you think? Judd Apatow doing a pandemic movie in midst of obviously he's taken real life to hey, you know what? Why not? So go for it, right?
If 2020 wasn't long enough, we have to sit through a Judd Apatow movie.
Ouch! Ow! He does make occasionally good.
I think we're all gonna feel that way about pandemic movies, though, because I saw Michael Bay has a pandemic movie coming out, and
it's
like
COVID-23 or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, and a podcast I was listening to do today that had a bunch of big name voice actors in it, and it's just like, of course, the plot is a pandemic, and then I'm seeing this, he's gonna do a movie about a pandemic, and it's just like we're gonna get that's gonna be the second wave of death in Hollywood. It's just gonna be a wave of pandemic movies when everyone is so sick of hearing about the pandemic. Kind of like after 9/11, everything in like a lot of fiction was so terrorism centric.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna be like that.
Or the fact that we had 3, 4, 5 different 9/11 movies.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. The true story. Oh God.
Because Oliver Stone has the World Trade Center. There was actually the movie 9/11 that came out. So
yeah,
isn't Nicolas Cage in that one?
Yeah,
World Trade Center. Yeah,
or World Trade Center. Yeah. Oh,
Travolta was in one of them, wasn't he?
No, Travolta was supposed. Oliver Stone had asked Travolta to do World Trade Center, but I think he was too busy. Oh, I forget what he was too busy doing. He was too busy to do it. So he says, "Hey, I want you to go talk to my buddy Nick Cage. I think he would be good for it." So it's Travolta's reason why we got Nick Cage in an Oliver Stone film.
Oh, I'm thinking of Ladder 49. I don't think that was set during 9/11 though.
No, I don't think so.
But he does play a firefighter, so that's what I was thinking of. But I think Rob's right. Like, we're going to get a lot of pandemic-centered movies, and I think this is. I'm hoping with Judd Apatow, he can maybe put a little spin on it with his comedic and drama style that he has. I think he'll fit well with Netflix and having the longer form content that he likes to put out. It'll easily hit that 2.5 to 3 hour mark for him, and it's a good place to have it on Netflix now. And yeah, I'm kind of behind on my Apatow movies, but I've heard good things about his last couple, like Trainwreck and what was the new one he had with Pete Davidson?
King of Staten Island, which is fantastic.
Yeah. So.
But you'll know we have jumped the shark for pandemic movies when they show up on the Hallmark Channel and the Lifetime Channel.
Oh God, it's coming. Pandemic Christmas.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. As soon as
she happens to get quarantined with the Prince of Rich Estonia, and they're gonna, have beautiful blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan babies, and sell trinkets in a village in the countryside,
Mm-hmm.
That's how 2020 should end.
Yes. We should end with a Lifetime movie.
With the Lifetime pandemic Christmas movie.
Coming to you next year. All right. on to the next wonderfulness thing that we've got going on here is the Creed 2 director set to do Transformers because we need more Transformer movies. And he looks like the perfect guy to make a Transformers movie, doesn't he?
Yeah, because Creed 2 rules.
That's right, Mister. I tried to put it on my top 20 of the decade and got knocked off by Blake.
I love Creed 2. I think Creed 1 and 2 are perfect additions to the Rocky series, and those were big shoes to step in for Stephen Caple Jr. I mean, at that point in that series, there's only 3 directors, and it's 3 very acclaimed directors in that series. And for him to step in and deliver a sequel that's, in my opinion, just as good as the first movie and adds a lot to the mythos of that series is perfect. And, hopefully he can do the same now with the Transformers movie. I would love to see Michael B. Jordan come in for this one, too. I think he can basically do no wrong as an actor. He's also the sexiest man alive. So I think we could go for some Transformers meet the sexiest man alive. I'm all for that.
So you're hoping that maybe, if anything, he's going to be able to correct the ship.
Yeah, and I mean, I still have not watched Bumblebee, and I've heard great things about that. So hopefully that was an upward trend for this series, and he can step in and do a full-fledged Transformers movie that'll be much different than the Michael Bay version.
Well, and that's what I'm hoping for, because Bumblebee, as we kind of alluded to before with Scream and whatnot, Bumblebee is for the most part like a soft reboot to the Terminator, the Transformers franchise.
Robot, whatever.
It's a robot.
Terminator versus Transformers. Let's make that happen.
Oh hell yeah, I'd watch that,
dude. I would be there day one. But no, I mean, if this Transformers movie is going to be a direct sequel to Bumblebee, where essentially we're forgetting the Michael Bay movies exist, then I'm definitely more on board for that, because especially like you said, I mean, he took what Coogler did with the first Creed and was able to keep up with that. So, here's hoping.
Rob, do you have any thoughts on this? Are you a fan of? I would assume you're probably more of a fan of the '80s Transformers stuff than the Michael Bay cinematic masterpieces.
You got the touch. Yeah, that amazing soundtrack that I still work out to. Thank you very much. But
it's a good soundtrack.
It's an amazing soundtrack. It's very 80s, but in all the right ways. But no, I loved the Creed movies. I thought they were a great addition to the Rocky franchise. So this gives me hope. I've really been not burnt. Let me put it this way. I always had really low expectations going into the Transformers movies, and they were usually either met or, below. And then about the time that there's like Crusader Knights charging against Transformers or whatever the heck that was, that's about when I tuned out that franchise. I have heard good things about Bumblebee, like you said, but no, this good things. A new person at the helm might be exactly what it needs. And I mean, they're giant sentient alien robots, so there's room to like try new things with it. There's a little flexibility there.
Have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's honestly, that's one of the things you spun it there here, without going overboard with it. That's one thing I enjoyed about Bumblebee is Bumblebee was just fun. Now, I think John Cena might have been a little ill-used. I was still waiting for like 1980s black leather jacket mullet John Cena, but of course I got military issue John Cena like I'm used to. So
yeah.
But other than that, I mean, that's one thing I enjoyed about Bumblebee is Bumblebee was just fun. It did what it needed to do, but it wasn't trying to be something it wasn't. So hopefully we get to have more fun with this one here as well.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe who knows? Maybe I will get John Cena someday in black leather jacket and mullet.
Hey,
we can dream.
He may show up as Vin Diesel's brother with a mullet.
That'd be amazing. All right, on to the next thing here. Dan Trachtenberg has been tapped to do the next installment in the Predator franchise. Because why not? we go overboard with all the other weird things of the 80s. So why not just keep trying to see if we can do something good with the Predator? Are you even caught up with the Predator films there, Casey? Like
I have watched the new one yet. I have not watched what was that, 2018 that came out, The Predator?
Yeah.
I have not watched that one yet. I have seen the rest multiple times. But yeah, I've heard very, very mixed things about Shane Black's Predator movie. But I'm excited for this. I'm excited to see again another new take on the Predator series. I love 10 Cloverfield Lane, which Dan Trachtenberg did direct. So I think that's a nice wrinkle to throw into this franchise. Having a director who did one of my favorite genre films the last 10 years or so. So I'm excited to see what he can do with a Predator film. But my only thing is, going forward, since we have done multiple Predator films and we kind of have ignored some of the things that have happened in each, let's get our first actual true sequel to the first Predator movie. Let's bring back Arnold as Dutch and put him up against multiple Predators. Like, let's just get that. We have not had that yet. Let's get it. I want it.
Get it before Arnold Schwarzenegger is too old to do it.
Deep fake it.
They already tried that in one of the other Terminators. You know, I don't know if we want to try to deep fake that.
I want that uncanny what is it? Grand Moff Tarkin floating head thing. You know, that version of Arnold to fight Predators.
No,
just take different lines from Arnold movies in the past and put them into this one.
Isn't that a line from True Lies?
See you at the party, Richter. What does that have to do with the Predator?
What's his what's one of your favorite lines from Jingle All the Way?
Put that cookie down now. Like, imagine him saying that to a Predator. That would be amazing.
Yeah, he starts making a Turbo Man reference, and you're just like, what?
I would watch the hell out of Turbo Man versus the Predators. That's a movie.
Of course you would.
Yeah.
Of course you would.
I'll confess, my first reaction when I saw this headline, when you sent the headlines over, was stop, in the voice of the little kid from The Simpsons in that bit where they're beating the mascot to death and the little boy's crying and it goes, stop, he's already dead. And that's how I feel about this franchise a little bit, because I just loved the first one so much. And the second one, of course, obviously was amazing too, and was kind of like built more lore in that world and stuff. But so the recent ones, oh my gosh, they have been not good. And I don't know, but this director, and especially loved 10 Cloverfield Lane, so I'm kind of like on board. So my initial reaction was like, dear God, please no. But now I'm like, okay, yeah, let's see what happens. Oh, let's roll the dice.
Mm-hmm.
With as much as everybody has commented about that too, and it's literally sitting in my library, and it's still yet to do it. But you know, everything this and everybody that's talked about 10 Clover Lane, I was like, maybe I really need to sit down and just watch that, because I hear nothing but good things. And if what everybody says about that goes into this here, then I'm for it.
Yeah, 10 Cloverfield Lane rules. Like, you have to watch it. John Goodman in that movie is incredible. He's so good in that movie. And if he showed up to fight a Predator,
oh man,
hell yes.
But
could you imagine? Okay, so let's say they do bring back Arnold, and he's going back into the forest to fight the Predators, and one of the army buddies he brings along is John Goodman. Like,
yes,
hell yeah. Who would not watch that movie? That would be perfect casting to team those two up.
Especially if John Goodman kind of has like the same demeanor that he did, or like the role kind of thing that I picture like what he did with Red State.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
So, you know, I got to looking and I was like, okay, because I was having a little bit of a tick here and whatnot. Is, you know, it's interesting to see that this is coming out, being that this is now a Disney property, you know, that Disney owns the Predator franchise now. You know, I think when I think about it is they really don't have anything kind of in this wheelhouse that I can really think of off the top of my head, unless you can correct me, for them to be able to compete with something that has like this kind of longevity for an action franchise. So maybe that's another reason why they're trying to dip their toes in yet again. Maybe.
I would suppose the only one that I can, off the top of my head, would be Die Hard is also a Fox property.
Right, but I'm talking like pre-Fox merger. Like, did Disney, Buena Vista, any of like their things have anything that was kind of in that same like
sci-fi, R-rated, action?
Yeah, not that I can think of.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I pictured them saying, okay, we now own this relatively known and established franchise. And, the last couple ones, whether they consider good or not, whatnot, I picture Disney going, you know what, we have something here. Let's get a good guy, maybe like, Trachtenberg here, and maybe we pull out something that we've never seen before.
Mm-hmm. And for people worrying about like Disney now owning Fox and them putting PG-13 ratings on their R-rated stuff, I don't think you have to worry about that at all. I think this will be that gritty, hard R-rated movie. Like, there's no way Disney is going to make a PG-13 Predator movie.
Yeah, Disney is savvy enough, I think, that they wouldn't do that.
Well, and now though too is now that they've rebranded the 20th Century Fox and 20th Century Studios, they now have that studio umbrella where they can release these properties. Where Buena Vista might have been like the closest thing that we had to that, where it borderline in some instances, like early, like Miramax and like Color of Night, like those early to mid 90s time frame for Buena Vista. But I think having 20th Century Studios, I think, is hopefully going to be their umbrella to say we can do this, because I think that's probably where Deadpool's probably going to stay.
Oh, they'll make a Disney joke about that, but I would love to see the Disney logo come up before a Predator movie.
Oh, man.
All right. That's it for the news. Should we move on to coming soon here? We do have quite the list of movies to talk about this week. And the first one we do got to talk about, he is the man that we are talking about all month. He is Kurt Russell. He is back as Santa Claus in the Christmas Chronicles Part 2, hitting Netflix on November 25th. So, guys, Christmas Chronicles 2, he will then team up with his longtime partner, Goldie Hawn, who plays Mrs. Claus in a brand new adventure here. Perfect for this time of year, seeing Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn playing Mr. and Mrs. Claus. It is written and directed by Chris Columbus, who is no stranger to holiday films. He directed the first Home Alone and the second one. So I think I like that addition to this. That's pretty cool.
Did Chris Columbus do the first Christmas Chronicles as well?
He did not. I don't know who did. I would have to look up who did the first one. I don't really
I'm working on it. I'm working on it right now. But I mean, in terms of what Chris Columbus can do, I'm all for it. He definitely knows how to be able to put off those family-oriented, good, fun movies. I mean, he's the guy that helped jumpstart the Harry Potter franchise as well. You know, he definitely would not have been the director to end them, because they're too dark for what Chris Columbus is, what he does. But I mean, like you said, in terms of like the Home Alone movies and stuff like that, I'm all for Chris Columbus doing this. And if it's even as 3/4 as good as the first one is, and that we've got Goldie Hawn playing Mrs. Claus, I've just been waiting for this to release. I was hoping it'd be released by now, but no, we have to wait for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and this first movie, I know, Brian, we both had the chance to watch it. We both really enjoyed it. This is a great family Christmas movie. Maybe leaning in towards like, hell yeah, Kurt Russell's Santa Claus. That's what I'm talking about. But it is a fun family Christmas movie. I'm glad we're getting that again, and I'm hoping for that with this one. And adding Chris Columbus and Goldie Hawn throughout the whole movie, yeah, I think this is a recipe for another great, maybe even a better family Christmas movie. And we also should throw out that Cinema Falls and the West Mall 7 in Sioux Falls are showing this movie on the big screen for a couple nights. So they are doing it November 24th and also on Thanksgiving Day. So you will get a chance to watch this on the big screen if that is something you would like to do. I know many of us watched the first one at home on Netflix, so to see this on the big screen would be I think that'd make the experience even more better.
I'll throw this out here for you, Casey, just not to say that it's going to make or break your decision to watching the Christmas Chronicle, because I know you will anyway. But the little kid that was in Witches before he gets turned into a rat, he's in it.
He's in this, yeah. That's fine.
He's in it. But then again, so is Julian Dennison that was in Deadpool. So, maybe this will be the opportunity that we get to see what caliber of an actor is the kid from The Witches is, if he gets something better out of this, maybe. I don't know what their capacity in there is. I was looking at the cast.
I'm sure they're the kids in the cast that are along with this little journey that Santa Claus is on.
It'll be fun.
Yeah,
I'll be looking forward to this.
Mm-hmm. Rob, do you have any interest in that? Have you watched the first one at all?
I have not watched the first one. It's on my list, but it not like hasn't been a high priority on my list. But definitely, if I went over with my nieces, in the before 4 times, if I went over and my nieces and nephews were sitting down to watch this, I would totally, dig into the couch and watch with them. But
I would honestly tell you, for the sake of like Christmas movies, you have those kind of movies that are, the main staples of the rotation when the holidays come around.
Sure.
This is definitely the first one. It's definitely one of those ones where I would be like, hey, this is a good Christmas movie that you should watch every year. So it's definitely one of those ones where I would bet to say that you'd be like, I'm all for in part 2 had you had already seen the first one, because Casey and I really do back up that movie to say, oh, okay, of course, Netflix is getting into this holiday and this holiday, just like they're trying to do with everything. But no, it is generally a very good Christmas movie.
Yeah.
Awesome. I will have to check it out.
All right. Next up, we do have another holiday-themed movie. This one is heading towards Netflix on November 25th. This is Happiest Season. So this stars Kristen Stewart and Mackenzie Davis. It is a holiday rom-com about a lesbian woman who plans to propose to her girlfriend at their family's Thanksgiving dinner, only to find out that when she is brought there, the family does not know that either one is gay. And this also does co-star. This has a pretty great cast in this. Co-stars Aubrey Plaza, Allison Brie, Daniel Levy, and like I said, stars Kristen Stewart and Mackenzie Davis as our leads.
And I would also like to point out, which it kind of does throw me off here, is that this is directed by Clay Duvall. And you are scratching your head to Clay Duvall.
Yeah, the name does not ring a bell.
She was in The Faculty. She was in Identity. Oh my goodness. What else was she in? Oh my goodness gracious. Argo. She was in Girl Interrupted. So, I mean, this is one of those ones where she's not known for being a director. And you know what? Honestly, from what I've seen from the trailer, it does look really good. Granted, I'm having semi-flashbacks of watching Les Bomb here a couple of years ago, because there's a lot of similar traits to the storyline here, but that's just probably happy coincidence.
Yeah, and this has bigger stars than that movie. I mean, you have Kristen Stewart and Mackenzie Davis, who are continually.
You don't get any bigger than Gutenberg.
You don't get bigger than Gutenberg. He should have been in this one too. I wish he was.
And Cloris Leachman and Bruce Dern and Kevin Pollak.
Yeah. But this one,
as you can see, I've not named a single person that actually plays the two main characters.
Yeah, I think that's what this movie's going to hinder on, is the chemistry between the two leads in this movie. And from what I've seen in the trailer, it looks like they got it. I'm looking forward to watching this one, especially. Again, yeah. I'm kind of getting in the mood of I want to watch some holiday movies, and so I think this will definitely fit in my watches here for the next month. I think this looks like a good time.
Yeah, and it is definitely one of those ones that I'm glad it's going to Hulu and being on Hulu, just because of the fact that it's going to give me more opportunity to want to go see it. It is not the kind of movie holiday movies are not typically the kind of thing that I'm going to go to the theater to go see. So the fact that we're getting this on Hulu is probably the best place for it for someone like me to go see it.
Yeah. You didn't rush out to Last Christmas last year? Come on, Brian.
I haven't even seen it for this Christmas.
I haven't watched it either.
As soon as you mentioned the words holiday rom-com, I'm like, oh, I am fated to watch this with my wife. Okay. That's the thing. Done.
At least it doesn't have the Hallmark logo in front of it.
Yeah, because I've seen so many of those.
At first, I thought. Now it took me a second to realize you said fated, F-A-T-E. You know, and at first, like you said faded, I was like, you're like fading into the background. I'm like, oh my god, is it that bad?
Maybe this next one will do that to him. That is Croods: A New Age, because it's the sequel we all wanted to the Croods, right?
You know, I'm on the fence about this. This is one of those movies. It's been forever since the first one came out. The first one is one of those movies that
2013.
Yeah, 7 years.
It's been that long.
It's been that long, and that's the part I don't get. You know, the first Cruise is not a bad movie. I genuinely enjoyed the first movie. It has a great, stellar voice cast for it. It's not like they probably couldn't get this cast in a year or 2 years after the fact and get them recorded, you know, in the 2 weeks or whatever they would need to have done this. Like, this movie should have been out like 5 years ago. But I'm hoping they keep up with the first one here. Like I said, I enjoyed the first one for what it was. It's got Nick Cage playing the main, you know, dad and whatnot.
Caveman, why not?
Yeah, so it's Nick Cage. So
I've not seen the first one. I don't have any interest in this one either. But I do think it's going to do pretty well hitting theaters November 25th. I think it'll do pretty well. Yeah, I would think it would overtake Freaky at the box office. I would hope it would make over $1 million. So I think they'll run the box office here for a little while with the Croods back in theaters, and especially over the holiday weekends coming up. I think this movie definitely will do pretty well.
Yeah, here's hoping. So. Here's hoping.
Yeah.
My catch to this is how many people are willing to take their kids to the theater with everything that's going on, because this is definitely a kids movie as opposed to, you know, grown adults going, I'm going to go see the Croods. So here's hoping it does that well. That's my only reservation, is that I picture a lot of families not wanting to take their kids into a theater right now.
And along with that, I'll just say one thing. Like the couple times I've gone to the theater since March, I've felt nothing but I felt super safe in the theater, and that's because not a lot of people are going there. For one, I'm usually one of 10 people in the theater, so I'm already spread out. But the actual precautions that are in place for them cleaning and keeping people maintaining their distance, I think the theaters are doing what they can right now. So I think if families are kind of on the fence about it, I think, you know, make sure you have to rent out 2 rows to keep that much more space between you, and then just sit all together. So there's ways around it, again, if families want to check this movie out.
Oh, definitely.
All right, this next one's wild, guys. We got to talk. It's more wild than Nicolas Cage playing a caveman in an animated film.
That's pretty wild.
This is pretty wild. This is Hillbilly. Is it Elegy?
Sure.
Elegy? I don't know.
Elegy, I'd say.
Elegy? Yeah, sure. This is the new Ron Howard Netflix movie. Had a limited theatrical run beforehand, but this does hit Netflix on November 24th.
We got it here in town.
We did have it here in town, and then now we're getting hit here on Netflix. This is the big push for next year's Oscars for Amy Adams and Glenn Close and Ron Howard to be in the running for that. That's for sure. This follows a former Marine and current Yale law student who has to return home and face his backwoods family, including his opioid addicted mom, played by Amy Adams, and his wild and crazy grandma, played by Glenn Close.
Yikes!
Yeah, I've not
to unpack there.
I've not heard anything good about this movie. I've heard it is a giant misstep for everyone involved with this movie. That makes me want to watch it even more, though.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, you want to watch it to see if it really is the train wreck that some people make it out to be?
Yeah, for me, Ron Howard is a great journeyman director, but he's never stood out to me, never had that wow factor. And if he has the wow factor of Amy Adams and Glenn Close playing these backwoods redneck moms, I'm like, yeah, give it to me. I'll watch that.
Watching the trailer, it's like, what did they like? I look at other things that I've seen Glenn Close in, like Glenn Close when she was in Guardians with this very prim and proper, and then you look at her this and like, who like hit her with the baseball bat? like they backwoods country mom for sure.
The first thing that popped up when I Googled it is a review of it from Screen Rant, full of repetitive flashbacks and constant yelling, which is what I look for in a movie. Oh man.
Oh my god! I just have to pull this up. We got to look at these two in this movie. This is incredible.
It's probably going to be the still that I think it is. Come on, man! You're too slow.
Yeah, I don't know if it's coming up. So,
jeez.
Yeah, my internet's being slow, so we're not on. I think it's all the hillbilly backwoods people are trying to corrupt my internet right now.
All those 56K modems are just purring away.
So should we, Brian, if you want to take over for rearranging stuff, that would be awesome because my computer is being very slow.
Well, here, hold on a second here. There you go. That's what you wanted.
Oh my god.
Yes, there we go. There is Glenn Close and
That's
Amy
Glenn
Adams.
Close?
That is Glenn Close.
Oh.
If there's one thing I will give that woman credit for is that she goes like full on like method in like some of her character acting and stuff like that. Like there's so many times that Glenn Close is like, I didn't even realize that's who that was, like, Glenn Close is in Hook as a male pirate, she will go all in for everything. So since Mr. Casey's computer's being dumb and stupid here, we'll move on to the next thing here. And Stardust VOD November 25th, i.e. Stardust as in like Ziggy Stardust as in like David Bowie. And this is an IFC film. This is a film that I just saw the trailer when Casey's like, I'm watching the trailer right now. I'm like, I'm not even quite sure what this is. I do know it's got Mark Maron in it. I do know that for me personally, for the sake of David Bowie, that is David Bowie. For me, it didn't grab me. It didn't do me like, say, a Rocket Man or even Bohemian Rhapsody for that matter. Like I don't know what to think here.
I'll be honest. I saw the title and I was like, so are they re-releasing that 2004 movie Stardust?
Well, trust me, when he said he was watching the trailer for Stardust, I was like, that movie's like 13, 14 years old. Because I as well thought was it Michelle Pfeiffer fantasy film thing or whatever it is?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you? I'm like, ooh, like the person that they got playing David Bowie, and this is no offense to him, but he just does not seem like the right fit for David Bowie. Like, but I believe, if I remember correctly, that there was a talk about a David Bowie movie where the David Bowie's estate and family were not backing behind it.
That's this movie.
That's this one. So there's not going to be any David Bowie music. And like, I'm not sold on it at all.
All right, so we're talking Stardust, yes, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Way to jump out and jump back in.
I know my internet was getting attacked by some hillbillies, like I said, but yeah, this I did watch the trailer for this movie. It looks fine, but again, if the Bowie family is not going to back this movie, it's like, why, as a fan, would I want to watch that then? Like, Duncan Jones has been very outspoken, David Bowie's son, about the family wanting no part of this movie. So, and his dad would have been upset that this movie would be made. So, why even try to make it? But again, if you can get the rights to certain things, I guess if you're a studio, why not take the chance?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, but I mean, an IFC can and has put out good stuff. I don't see it with this one here, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. All right, should we move on to our last couple re-releases then?
Boom! There you go.
Guys, it's okay. Just let it go. Frozen is back on the big screen starting November 25th. This is, I mean, I said the Croods will probably do pretty well. I kind of forgot Frozen's heading back to theaters. I think some families are going to be more inclined to say, let's just go watch Frozen again.
Yep.
I agree to a certain extent, other than the fact that you have a lot of families that are like, just go take your copy of Frozen off the shelf and go watch it in your room. You know.
But
that's
again,
true.
It's on Disney Plus. Like, you know,
Frozen has had longevity though. The Croods has not. No one remembers the Croods until this trailer for this one dropped. Like, oh yeah, that was a movie. That's right. Frozen is everywhere, and it's still everywhere. I think it's going to give Nicolas Cage, the caveman, a run for his money here. But if Nicolas Cage was singing in a Disney movie, animated Disney movie, then we might be having a different story. But that is not the case.
No, but I want to see that now. Yeah. National Treasure 3, the musical.
Ooh.
But, you know, I mean, you do make a valid point. In the time frame that between Croods 1 and Croods 2, we've had 2 Frozen movies. Even to the point even to the point where Disney could probably be like drop straight to VOD when go, oh, by the way, we made a Frozen 3 that we didn't tell you about, and he probably would still make bank.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's move. I think one that us guys might be more excited about watching in theaters possibly is the Blues Brothers back on the big screen November 29th and December 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun.
See, this would be one of those, like, you know, like I've mentioned before, like the bucket list movies. Like when the Blues Brothers came out in theaters, I wasn't at the age where I would be going to see a movie like the Blues Brothers in theaters. To the point where it's like, this would be one of those ones where I would thoroughly enjoy the opportunity to see this on the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
I've always enjoyed this movie for the sake of an SNL skit turned full-fledged movie. They didn't make a movie that was just poking fun at the blues. They are legitimately true to the genre, bring in actual blues, you know, Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles. Like, I think anybody that is a fan of the Blues Brothers, or even just a fan of blues and jazz in general, go see this in the theater.
Yeah.
A fan of crazy police car chases.
Yes.
I want to see that on the big screen. I want to see where they literally start piling them. They're like sliding other police cars on top of the 3 or 4 police cars already like there. Like, yes.
Mm-hmm. I will say, and I don't know if it's still in town here, but for the longest time when I used to work on the northeast end of town, a little bit further down on Cliff Avenue, somebody had a full replica of the Bluesmobile with the siren on the top of the roof. And nice. I always wanted to know, does it really work? Like, I wanted just to go up to that place and just knock on the door and be like, please tell me the bullhorn works.
Could have just went up to the door and just said, I'm on a mission from God, and they'll know what you're talking about.
Exactly. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah, I would love to watch this on the big screen. I would have to look at my schedule if this would fit in it, since it is a 2-night only event. But yeah, I love the Blues Brothers. Grew up on this movie. I think it's easily one of the best SNL movies and
John Landis movies.
And it's a great John Landis movie. Yeah. It's a great a buddy movie. There's so many different levels. It's a great musical. It's great. It's a great comedy. It's a great action movie as well. There's so many elements that make the Blues Brothers great. And it's been a hot minute since I've watched this movie even. So seeing it on the big screen is probably going to be the best way to go for a rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that it? Is that it for coming soon? Is that all we got?
That's all you got in there, my friend.
All right. So that is all we have for coming soon. If you would like to know about anything else that is coming soon to theater streaming and anything else, please check out our full coming soon article on backlot605.com. That should be out actually by the time this episode is out this week because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So that that article will be out already, so you can figure out what you want to watch over Thanksgiving weekend.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to take a little break, and then when we come back, we're going to be talking about some trouble, big trouble, in Little China.
Now, when you come back here really quick here, I won't be back here. Just give me a few minutes, and I will pop right back on in.
All righty. Hello, listeners. Are you craving even more movie content? Head on over to our horror theme show, /605, which is hosted by Sam Lenz, Blake Ginnathan, and myself, Casey Kelderman. That is where we break down our favorite films in the horror genre and everything else that is related to the genre that us horror nerds love so much. Podcast is available right now on Anchor.fm, Apple, Google, and YouTube. We will see you there. Alrighty, we are back here talking about Big Trouble in Little China as we round out Kurt Russell month here for the month of November. What a wild month it's been. We've been talking many different Kurt Russell movies. We kicked it off with Tombstone. We went to Sky High after that. Last week we hit Death Proof on our Patreon. We hit a couple as well. We did Overboard and Used Cars. And now we are on him and John Carpenter together in 1986's Big Trouble in Little China. My favorite Kurt Russell movie. This was a personal thing to put it last because I like to save the best for last. And for me, this is the best of Kurt Russell movies. And as we wait for Brian, me and Robert will start off this little conversation. Rob, you said you watched this a lot on cable growing up. Do you remember the first time you ever watched Big Trouble in Little China, though?
Oh, boy. Like I said, it would have been on cable over a weekend or a holiday with the family, and I'd have been probably like 10 years old or something like that for them to let me watch something that had that much action and almost quasi horror in it.
Yeah, the first time I ever watched this movie was a few years ago, and I think I just either blind bought it or it was on Netflix or some streaming service, and me and my younger brother watched it, and he was probably at that point 10 or 11 years old. So we were watching this for the first time, and man, the first time I watched it, I fell in love with it, but then it was also a great satisfaction that I also found a movie that my 10 or 11-year-old brother also loved. Like, after we watched this, he was like, that might be my favorite movie ever now. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. That's a movie from 1986 by John Carpenter is a 10-year-old's favorite movie in 2015 or whatever. I'm like, that's pretty cool. And that shows the longevity that this movie does have. I mean, when this movie first, and when this movie first came out, it was critically received all right, but the box office, it was a box office bomb, did not make a whole lot of money. It was terribly marketed, which is a big story behind the troubled post-production of this movie. But yeah, since then it's garnered huge cult status for this movie.
Yeah, it had a lot of drama and production, is my understanding, because this is like the one this is the reason Carpenter left the big studio system. This was his last big studio movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say, based on some stats I looked up before we got here, something like it cost around 20 million, made around 11 million. And one of his things that he was pissed about Carpenter was that he was promised this like huge marketing blitz that was going to come with this blockbuster, and they only spent like 3 million on marketing, which is nothing. And so I could see why at the time it fell into a little bit of obscurity, but man, what a great movie. Just it's got John Carpenter era practical effects, which I can't tell you how much I love that. Like, my wife, I made her watch it with me last night, and she was pretty annoyed with that, but I was squealing every time some real big practical effects thing came up, and I was just like, yes.
So, it has some awesome practical effects, and that you talk about how Carpenter feels about this movie, and again, and how the studio marketed it. Again, if I was a studio executive and I saw, the early cut of Big Trouble in Little China, I would think to myself, how the hell am I going to market this movie? There's nothing else like Big Trouble in Little China. How do you market that?
I don't know, because I tried to explain. I can't imagine how hard it was to market, because I was just trying to explain it to my wife, and she's like, "Are you high? What are you talking about?" Like, okay, we'll just watch the trailer, and it still like doesn't do it justice. And the whole idea with them making Kurt Russell the like front and center, even on the poster and Brian's background there, front and center, but in the actual movie, that's part of the shtick of this movie, is that he's the sidekick. He's our point of view perspective character, but he's absolutely the like bumbling sidekick with good reflexes, because that gets foreshadowed like five. I didn't realize how many times they foreshadowed. It's Chekhov's reflexes. They foreshadowed it so many times, and then it comes back at the end there.
And that's what I do love about this movie is, again, in the marketing for it, it is marketed as a Kurt Russell, John Carpenter movie. And I suppose that is the way you would have to market this movie. It is also
if you think it had bad marketing before, if you wouldn't have done that, it would have done worse.
Yeah, and it's very famous that Kurt Russell does not like the poster for this movie because he doesn't think that looks like him on the poster. Which I'm like, looking at it closer now, I'm like, yeah, that kind of does not look like Kurt Russell that much.
It does look a little off. But I enjoyed this particular piece of artwork, but you're absolutely right. Where whoever drew his face didn't draw it very well. Yeah. I will say that for the sake of, like, how do you market this movie? As I'm watching now, mind you, I watched this movie after we went through our stuff for last week's Death Proof. This, for me, it sounds like if you really listen and watch this is like Carpenter's attempt to try to do an East meets West. That this is his Chinatown Western, to the point where, like, I was starting to hear the Kurt Russell doing John Wayne in his Burton role. Yep. Like I pictured like this is as close as that Kurt Russell had gotten to doing a Western before he actually did a real Western.
It's funny that you bring that up, though, because this was originally written as a Western.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be about Jack Burton and him losing, instead of his truck, his horse. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, I would like and again, we'll talk about this at the end of the episode, how many times they've tried to do a sequel or a remake now. I'm like, maybe just go back to that original version and set it in the West, so you can at least be completely different than the Carpenter movie. So,
do I get to see The Rock do a Western?
The Rock play a cowboy? Yeah, why not?
I want to see Jack. Yeah. I want to see The Rock on a horse.
That poor horse.
So it's funny that, Rob, you brought up how do you explain this movie. I'm going to try to explain this movie because we have to get into some sort of plot with this movie.
Good luck, because like I said, East meets West meets John Carpenter's monster movies.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna give this a shot here. Why not? It is directed by John Carpenter. Does star Kurt Russell as Jack Burton, who is this kind of roughneck truck driver who he has befriended another gentleman who lives in Chinatown, Dennis Dune, who plays Wang in this movie. He is our hero of the movie. Kurt Russell is, like we said, he is the sidekick in this. And basically, the two have played a game, and it ends up that they're playing for double or nothing. Turns out Russell wins the bet, and Wang has to pay him back. In order to do so, Jack Burton does not trust Wang enough to let him go get the money, so he offers to give Wang a ride to the airport to go pick up his wife, Wang's future wife, who is coming over from China to America, so the two can be wed. And while they're there, this rival, basically street gang comes in and attempts to steal this one woman coming off the airplane. They fail because Jack intervenes, and instead they take Wang's fiance. So this leads off into this big chase, and we end up in a back alleyway as Wang and Burton are trying to chase this group down to get Wang's fiance. We end up in this back alley, and it's basically rival warfare in this back alley. And then, you know what? Why not? Let's throw in some mystical elements into this movie, too, because, a truck driver, throwing in gang warfare and stealing women to sell them as sex slaves is not enough. No, we got to throw in warlocks and wizards into this movie, and we get some crazy characters in this movie. The three Storms show up first. That are if you're Mortal Kombat fans, those are just Mortal Kombat characters, and actually are the inspiration, I guess, for many of them. And then the big baddie shows up, Lopan. He shows up, Jack Burton runs him over with his truck. He just pops right back up. He's back alive. So this is where we get the mystical element of this movie. And then the rest of the plot is basically Burton and Wang teaming up with their friends to go and break into Lopan's kind of warehouse, his hideout, to then save Wang's fiance. So that's basically the plot of this movie. Mm-hmm. Much more crazy things do happen once they get to Lopan's warehouse.
I like how you call it a warehouse, but it is truly an underground supervillain lair.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
Straight up with Bigfoot.
Again, we're going to talk about all this. I don't understand why that's in this movie. And I love
it because it's John Carpenter. It's John Carpenter going, you know what? There's not enough John Carpenter in this movie. There's not a single monster because Lopan, is monster-ish as he is not a John Carpenter monster. So he's like, I need to up the ante between Bigfoot and eyeball thing.
The D&D beholder. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's. I almost forgot some of this wild stuff because I remembered the big Yeti Sasquatch character. I'm like, okay, that's weird. And then I'm like, oh yeah, there is a floating head with a bunch of eyeballs, isn't there?
How do you forget the floating head with a bunch of eyeballs? Especially when he smiles. He smiles at you, he can still see you.
I forgot that, and then when they're in the petrified forest underground passage thing, which sure, why not under San Francisco in the underworld. And they must cut that. That's my theory, is they cut that from the cable thing for time, because it has nothing to do with like the plot other than they're just going through this like enchanted underground forest thing. A giant spider thing straight up murks a guy, eats him and drags him away. And then Egg throws like a magic spell at him that says he won't return. And then everybody just moves on with their lives, except for I'm with Jack Burton, where I'm like, no, what the? I need an explanation for that. And they're like, no time, just keep going.
That's kind of the whole plot of this movie. It's like, we don't have time to explain. Like, you just need to catch up as we're going. Like, we're going. Like, this movie starts off right away. We're in this world. Like, pretty much from within the first 15 minutes, we're set up into the magic of this movie. And it's like, okay, I guess this is where this movie's going. Where else can we go into this rabbit hole?
Pretty much.
Did think it was interesting. There is a part where I think it's James Hong plays Egg, the wizard, and he's talking with the other older gentleman in the restaurant, and he's just I forget where Jack is at this point, but he basically gives us the summation of what this movie's style is, where he's like, Chinese culture, man, it's just a mix of, you've got Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, and then you throw in a little Taoist mysticism, and that's Chinatown or whatever. It basically gives you like a thesis statement on what this movie actually is, with the like throwing like the concepts from like 3 different cultures in a blender and then saying, here you go.
So when this movie opens, we do open with Victor Wong's Egg, and he's basically saying, Jack Burton's a great hero. He's a great hero. You should all love him. He should not get in trouble for anything that happened. Again, this was a studio mandated opening to this movie. It was supposed to just cold open with Jack in his truck. I think that is probably the weakest part of this movie, is that the cold open with Egg saying that, yeah, Jack Burton's a hero. Everybody should love Jack Burton, even though he doesn't do a whole lot of heroic things in this movie. He's just kind of there, and
he doesn't know how to throw a knife properly.
When you learn that that's a state or a studio mandate, it makes sense, because it is totally a spoon feeding to guys like my dad that are just like totally grounded blue collar guy. It's totally selling them on the like easing them into the whole like, oh, and there's monsters and there's a great action hero and there's going to be like magic, and then eases you in with the like lightning hands. There's just like there's going to be a hero and there's going to be magic in it, and it's almost like an old timey like crier trying to like sell you on this grand adventure that's coming up. So I could see why the studio was like ease the rubes into this instead of throwing them into the wild and being like, what the hell was that? You know, I could see where they were coming from. It once again, where they're coming from was underestimating or, you know, condescending to Middle America.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think it's at that point. But again, at that point, at that point in Russell's career, he is Snake Plissken, so he is known as the action hero. He's done The Thing as well with Carpenter at this point, so he does have that aura around him where you would want to set up that he's the hero. And I get where the studio is like, yeah, we should probably market it around Russell and Jack Burton being the hero in this movie. And in a way, I still find that very charming that they set it up as he's the hero. He's on the poster. This is a Kurt Russell movie. And then when you watch it, you're like, well, he's a bumbling buffoon who can barely do anything right in this movie.
That's what makes him the star, though. Yeah. We can better relate to the bumbling buffoon trying to be the action star than the actual action star.
I think that's part of why my family, you know, like the blue collar people liked it so much, was because while it was an 80s action movie, it wasn't this like, you know, chiseled, perfect, you know, robot of a man mowing through, you know, enemies. It was totally like the truck driver that we all know and love from my hometown got pulled into this like action movie adventure where he's holding his own, but clearly like in over his head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And again, I think a lot of people give John McClane and Bruce Willis a lot of credit for being the everyman action hero.
Yeah,
this is a pretty close template to John McClane for this movie.
Agreed.
Even more so, where he's thrown into this magical world. He's not just fighting this this terrorist group. No, he's fighting like mystical beings and end of the world type situations in this. But I do love the opening with the Jack just being a loudmouth on his radio, and when he first meets up with Wang, that's when we get our first introduction to his reflexes in this movie. That is paid off in the end, where Wang is trying to chop the bottle in half, and it shoots up, and he catches it before it hits him in the face. Like, yeah, I like all that stuff. It's setting up our relationship. It's giving us a setup to the payoff at the end of the movie. And it sets up the great dynamic between the two in this movie, because in any other action movie, the Asian star would be the sidekick. In this case, no, it's Kurt Russell. He's the sidekick. He's not going to kick anyone's ass. You know, Dennis Dune as Wang is going to kick everybody's ass.
He's going to be the one, to show Burton how it's really done. You know, Kurt Russell does the thing and whatnot, realizes he screws up. So Wayne comes in and says, oh, you know, this is how you do it.
And that is set up pretty early in this movie, where obviously Kurt Russell is our focal character in this. He's the one leading us into this world. And then when we get to the chase at the airport, like, you know, Wang is the one still kicking ass. Jack does step in as the hero type figure, but I think it's more of a personal thing. Like, he's going to try to impress Kim Cattrall in this movie. Like, that's pretty much is like, I want to get my truck and I want to get the girl. That's all he cares about in this movie. And he wants
to get the girl before she ends up on Sex and the City.
Yeah. So that's where he's coming from, and then Wang coming in as the actual hero who's trying to save his fiance steps in, and I do love the dynamic between the two, and then when we get to the back alley, that is one of my favorite scenes in this movie. Is when we get to this back alley. It's just gang warfare almost, and it's just Jack Burton in the middle, like, what the hell is going on, Wang?
Well, and the part I think is kind of funny too is the fact that when we get to the back alley, it's like we're not quite sure what we're going to get and whatnot, because you figure you're going to expect it to kind of turn into this huge martial arts fight. And there's a little bit of fighting, and then all of a sudden guns start getting, throwing bullets all over the place. And then all of a sudden these mystical beings drop from the sky. And, that whole back alley is just all like, it's almost like Carpenter's like, you know what, that sounds like a good idea. Throw it in too.
And it feels like Carpenter's just having a blast making this movie, because he is also taking on, like, Carpenter's always been very anti-establishment, and he's taking on the 80s action star in this movie for sure, and the 80s action stereotype.
Oh yeah.
And I think that is definitely the start of that in this movie, is that back alley where Jack Burton's not fighting anyone when he finally gets in on the action. He's just running away. He's not getting in on the action really in this movie until a little later on. He steps in and gets a gun and stuff. But in that first part, when you have the gang warfare and then you have the mystical three storms show up, like, Jack Burton's like, I just want to get the hell out of here now.
Mm-hmm.
Then I do love the side characters in this movie too. Like, I love Victor Wong as Egg. I do love Donald Lee as Eddie. I think those two are great side characters along with this little adventure that they're going on. I think Lopan is pretty scary too. Do you guys find Lopan scary? I think he has a scary look to him for sure.
For me, even taking scary out of the equation, like, as weird and crazy as his character is, like, the way he was able to pull off this character, it's like no matter what you saw him in, Lopan is what you always remembered. Like, anytime you ever saw him, you're like, I don't remember his name, but that's the dude from Big Trouble in Little China.
It's Lopan.
It's Lopan. Like, you wouldn't have, like, what's his name? I don't know. It's Lopan. Because he did such a good job on being that creepy character, especially when he gets, especially like when he gets towards the end, there goes through the whole wedding ritual kind of thing, where there's even aspects of Lopan that makes you kind of maybe even question his sexuality on a time, or, here and there. Just his mannerism, just the way he talks. He does that. He does that job very, very well.
Yeah, I think he's really good in this movie. And again, the things I do find scary, I do find him. He is kind of scary as an old man, as the creepy old man with a ton of makeup on. Mm-hmm. But then when he's also the mystical being too, I'm like, yeah, this guy's terrifying. Like, I understand why everybody's afraid of Lopan in this movie.
That special effect when he is the old man and then transforms, where it's just like the light. Clearly, they have like a latex head and a light inside of it glowing, and then glowing out of his eyes and mouth. That transition, that is really solid. You'll never get that from CGI, where it's just like, it's clearly a visceral, physical thing that you could touch, but it's still something you can't match that.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And again, the practical effects in this movie are pretty great. Like, they're super underrated practical effects too.
A typical Carpenter film, though, at least. I mean, usually when you go into a Carpenter film, his practical effects aren't exactly, half-assed either.
No, this is Ed Loon, who I think he'd used in other I don't know if Ed Loon worked at all, even like as an under guy on the thing or whatever, but he's the guy who would go on to do his own special effects house and do Ghostbusters, all the special effects for those. And I did, in researching beforehand, because I'm a history nerd, research nerd, and I do that, said that Big Trouble in Little China and Ghostbusters are his two best films for special effects work. They're the two he's most proud of.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good movies to be proud of.
Yeah.
And effects for both movies that still hold up 30 plus years later.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so when we get to this underground layer of Lopan, I do love all the crazy stuff that goes on down there. I think the marriage set is an incredible set with like the escalator from the mouth. I'm like, yeah, he has an escalator. Why not? That's awesome. And again, like all the practical effects that go on towards the third act of this movie are astounding. Like the practical effects of the big floating eyeball character are great. Like,
yeah.
And then when
I mean, the only thing that is a little off that it kind of shows in its age here is when he's actually doing the floating. But the fact that they actually have the practical effects did like the green screen to put him in frame. But no, like when he's even like when he's just on the ground and whatnot, just doing that weird quivering thing, it's nice to see stuff like that. I do miss stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And like all the fight choreography and the wire work is like, it's super heightened, but it's so much fun. Like that's the biggest thing that I love about this movie. I don't know, there's few and far movies in between this that would fit into how much fun Big Trouble in Little China is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is just one of the most fun movies you could ever watch.
Oh, this is one of those ones where I think I've owned like I don't know how many different iterations, old VHS tapes, DVD kind of thing. I've got it on digital and whatnot, just because it's Big Trouble in Little China. You have to watch this movie at least once every couple of years at minimal.
Yeah, and again, I said this right before you came on, Brian. This is my favorite Russell performance. Easily my favorite Russell. I love him in this movie. I think that is a perfect way to use Kurt Russell's charm and his on-screen presence in this movie, while also just being this big, dumb, bumbling idiot in this movie. Idiots. And then I love the scene where they're about to go into the big fight at the end, and he shoots his gun in the air, and just rubble falls on his head. I'm like, yeah, that's a Jack Burton thing to do. Like, not even in the opening moments of the fight. That's
the sidekick thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because the hero, that wouldn't happen to the hero, not unless it was a full on straight comedy, kind of thing. But
Leslie Nielsen was playing him.
Exactly. But no, I admit I love things like that. When I was rewatching here a couple of weeks ago and whatnot, I kind of forgot about the whole shooting up and the debris falling and whatnot. And it is one of those things where you just sit there, you're like, okay, yeah, I have to laugh out loud at that one.
Mm-hmm.
Or when he's attempting to try to throw the knife at Lopan and fails miserably. He's able to get he's got that look on his face, but he's able to obviously get himself to show that he's kind of a hero because he can somehow catch and throw it back really quick because he's got superhuman reflexes like that all of a sudden.
Or even in the sequence where they're taking on Lopan's gang, him and Wang, and he tries to pull the knife out and he tries to throw it in one hand and it just goes across the room. And Wang kicks everybody's ass in the room, and then Jack shows up. It's like he's not even in the fight at all in that scene. I love it.
I love the look on it between the two of them, though. The look on his face of I'm ready to. Oh, and Wang just looked at him like, yeah, I know.
And I think that's a super underrated thing about Big Trouble is no one talks about. And as far as I've heard, it's always the Kurt Russell factor in this. But Dennis Dune is really good. Like, he should have been a bigger action star than he was. And I think that was probably leans towards like this was a big break for him, but the marketing was all Kurt Russell. It wasn't on him being the action star in this movie, which kind of sucks. Like, I think he's great in this movie. Has a great on-screen presence. He's a lot of fun to hang out with. He has that movie star quality to him too, especially like an action star. And I would have loved to seen him break out a little more. But if Big Trouble in Little China is the biggest movie you ever do, and that's the one everybody's going to remember you for, that's not a bad movie to have your legacy lay on.
You've got that one movie, and you're like, no, it's a good movie. I was in a good movie once.
I hope we're not done talking about Jack Burton moments, because there's a few they're near and dear to my heart. There's the one where he's opening up the green door to let everyone out, and he's just like, okay, once I open this up, there should be like one guy left or whatever, and they're not expecting us at all. and so get ready to run, and opens it up. There's like 50 guys standing there waiting with weapons. Closes it. We may be trapped. And it's like a Futurama joke thrown into this movie that was just that like floors me. And then the one I'd forgotten about that, like I said, is maybe one they cut for time when it's on cable, but where he cleverly, like cool badass, has the knife in his boot or like the side of his boot or whatever, and he kills the guy that's in the like the Buddhist or the armor or the heavy armor. But then it gets stuck on him. And so for the rest of the fight, where everyone else is doing wire fighting, sword fighting back and forth in the air, especially like Wang Chi and one of the storms are like going at it and they're fighting back and forth. Meanwhile, Jack Burton is like literally on his back with his legs in the air, like stuck under a dead guy going, eh.
You just cannot get him off. So it keeps cutting back to it too, and he still can't get him off.
Oh.
Yeah, Jack Burton rules in this movie, and it's not as a great action star. It's just the big bumbling idiot sidekick. I love it. It's so fun. Like, yeah, and Kurt Russell, like, he crushes in this movie. He's so good, and I love that he knows what movie he's into. He's not trying to
be
Kurt Russell himself is not trying to be the star. Jack Burton, the character, is trying to be, but Kurt Russell understands that in this movie, Jack Burton's the sidekick in it. And I think I just love the dynamic of that. And I think that definitely goes to Carpenter and Russell just understand each other. Like they worked on what, 5 movies together. And so I think that's like that the chemistry between actor director is perfect. And yeah, I love those two working together.
Which makes me kind of wonder, why didn't we get Kurt Russell in Scream? Come on.
In what?
Scream.
Why Scream?
I don't know. Because I'm getting my guys mixed up here.
That was Wes Craven.
You're thinking Wes Craven? Mm-hmm. That's okay. I actually had a conversation in my head with myself. It's like, because I was doing that earlier today. I was confusing Wes Craven with John Carpenter, and I was just like, just remember John Carpenter, because I was just like, and then we talked about a Scream movie, and I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna be screwed.
See, I don't feel so bad anymore now.
And apparently, this was not, they're most known for, the Escape movies, The Thing, Big Trouble. Apparently, Russell was definitely up for the role, and maybe Carpenter's first pick for They Live as well, instead of Roddy Piper. Which makes sense looking at that movie.
Yeah. I think it would have been a whole different kind of movie. Like, there's something about putting Russell in the Roddy Piper role. I think it definitely would not have taken away from the film, by all means. But now, having experienced that movie with Roddy Piper, I can't picture anybody else than him and Keith David in that back alley fight.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's where Roddy got to be able to shine a little bit. Be like, all right, I'm going to flex my wrestling moves, even if it's just a couple of them.
Two ordinary guys clumsily beating the shit out of each other. It was
all glorious. Over a pair of sunglasses.
Yep.
Since we were talking about great Jack Burton lines, I love when he's fighting one of the 3 storms, and he's like, you know what Jack Burton always says, during times like this, and the guy's like, who? Jack Burton, me.
Yes.
Like everybody should know who Jack Burton is.
Who? That guy with the truck you stole.
It's just like the fact that he thinks everybody should know who Jack Burton is and has to explain it.
So do you wonder, like, when they stole his truck, did one of the storms go in and hotwire it because he took his keys with him?
The lightning one, he just obviously shot lightning at it and it started up. That's how magic works, Brian.
The flying around, the wielding lightning, and the immortality, and the literal Yeti running around. That I could buy, but the getting the truck started without the keys is clearly where you've lost me on the suspension of disbelief.
Right? You just picture him trying to get underneath the cab, with his big old hat that's like 9 times too big for him. Going, here, hold on a second. I need to get to the electrical. Zap it.
I make that joke, but by the same token, I was complaining to my wife about the whole when they go to escape in the truck. I'm like, the air brakes would have taken more time to charge than that on a semi. You can't just take off in a semi like that.
Because when I think of Big Trouble, I think of realism.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's jump to the climax of this movie, because we have to talk about, of course, the payoff to Jack Burton's reflexes in it. And so basically it ends up with him. He's face to face with Lopan here at the end, the boss fight, if you will. And pretty much by happy accident, he defeats Lopan in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Not anything, Jack Burton has planned. It's just he throws the knife at Lopan, misses. Lopan throws it back. He catches it and throws it right back right away just because of his natural instinct to do that. I'm like, yeah, it's just a happy accident. He beats the bad guy. There's no big one-liner at the end or anything like that. It's just, yeah, he got lucky. Yep. I think that's his character. I got lucky in this situation.
Yes, he did.
Yes,
he did.
Yes, he did. But then at the end of the movie, I do want to touch on when Jack leaves. So there's a great line, of course, from Kurt Russell. Like they're like, "Oh, aren't you gonna kiss her?" And he's just, no. Like I'm even too cool to kiss the girl at the end, and I'm gonna drive off into my truck. And
there's a great
that is definitely like part of the Western right there, where it's like, no, pretty lady, I'm going to leave you here, and I'm going to get on my horse and ride into the sunset.
Yeah.
Well, even his last line, it sounds like something John Wayne would have said to end a Western. Like, I do want to read that out, because even the line delivery from Russell sounds like he's delivering it like he's in a Western. So
there's several lines in this movie where it sounds like Kurt Russell is doing Wayne.
Yeah. And so here's his last line of the movie. It's just remember what old Jack Burton does when the earth quakes and the poison arrows fall from the sky and the pillars of heaven shake. Yeah, Jack Burton just looks at big old storm right square in the eye and says, "Give me your best shot, pal. I can take it." It's like, yeah, that's just a Western line to throw in this movie. I love it.
But that is littered throughout this movie, because I don't remember what she says, but like there's a line of dialogue or 2 lines of dialogue where Kim Cattrall basically like doesn't even foreshadow, says this is what's going on, and like gives you the entire explanation of what's going to happen. Like, your atypical, Western, dub over, like when they're saying, when we get into this next part here, except they're literally just throwing it into the movie.
Do you guys have any other final thoughts or final lines you'd like to bring up for Big Trouble?
Just if they ever do remake it, and I think we already mentioned this, if they do a remake, I want them to do it as the Western, because that would be something fresh and new, is to see it as a Western. It's like set in that period.
But here's my question, though, is for everybody that loves this movie, enjoys this movie, who are appreciative movies, but they don't necessarily get into the nuts and bolts and grits like some of us do, is they see Big Trouble in Little China. They're used to, Kurt Russell and Carpenter, and you throw a Western at them, and then they're going to go into revolt mode because they're like, well, this isn't Big Trouble.
Yeah.
I say if you throw The Rock in it, it's already not Big Trouble to me.
Indeed.
Because let's jump into that, because that's kind of where I want to end the conversation, because they had been, sequels have been in the talks for a long time, but those have now died down. Carpenter is pretty much retired as a director. Russell's, he could
be Santa Claus.
Yeah, he's being Santa Claus. He could maybe, pull off playing Jack Burton again. I'm sure he could. But again, I think that ship has sailed, and we are back into, like, it's been rumored for a very long time that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson will be coming in to be the new star. He's producing Big Trouble in Little China. It has a script out there already. The guys, the duo behind the first Thor movie, X-Men First Class, like they've been tapped to do this script for this movie, so it's out there. It's in The Rock's 50 movies that he's working on right now.
Oh, is that all? I thought it was like 75 or 100.
It is probably that many. But again, it leads me to wonder, like, do fans want this? Even if it is The Rock, who is kind of Hollywood's go-to action star right now, do people want that? Do people want a Big Trouble reboot? Because for me, I don't. I think this movie stands alone. It's perfect the way it is. It doesn't need a sequel. It doesn't need a remake or a reboot. I don't know if The Rock has this. If he were to play Jack Burton, I don't know if The Rock has that.
Yeah.
You know, I look at it this way here, Casey. We have this love and appreciation, the history and the growing up with this film. Not everybody has that. The Rock has obviously his entire fan base that will go see something no matter what he does because he's in it. You know, and if this is a passion project that he does justly and does well and pays respect and homage to the original, and, you know, and doesn't just basically shit can all over the Carpenter version, I say, you know, give him a shot. You know, there are passion projects out there that are remakes that are absolutely fantastic. The Evil Dead remake was great. You know, that's one of those ones that some people would have said you should never remake that movie. You know, so, you know, I say until we see a crappy product, let him have it.
Yeah, I again, it's been rumored for a while. Who knows if it'll actually come to fruition? We have not seen anything. I don't even think there's a director attached to it at all. So
no, but it's still on this IMDb page.
Yeah, and it's still been up there. It's still been talked about. I know The Rock has mentioned it in the last year or so that Big Trouble is on the way. He's also said that about Black Adam and Third Jumanji and the Scorpion King and Be Cool 2 and Tooth Fairy 3 and everything else in between.
Now you're just throwing stuff around here.
I'm sure he's mentioned it. I'm sure he's
reading the
mentioned
IMDb page.
But yeah, I love the movie the way it is, and I would love to not see a remake of it. I would love, and the only way I would want to see a continuation is if Kurt Russell's like, all right, I want one more movie. That's it. I'm going to be done. John, let's do it. Let's go out, ride into the sunset. You and I doing one last movie together. John Carpenter and Kurt Russell doing Big Trouble in Little China 2.
You know, I'm completely behind that. Like, if it was going to be the last thing that Carpenter did, I would totally be behind that. But I think I would like to see something new, something different from Carpenter and Kurt Russell together that we have not seen before. If you're gonna give him that last hurrah, give him something original as opposed to just doing a sequel to something that's this old at this point.
Yeah, don't end it on a Escape from LA, you know, like they ended up doing.
You can't tell me you guys don't want to watch Jack Burton surfing down the streets of Chinatown.
Oh, dude, that's one of my favorite things about Escape from LA. I would totally go to the theater to go see Jack Burton surfing his semi down the Chinatown road.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, that means you have to get John Carpenter off his couch and away from his NBA video games for a little while to get on a movie set.
Yep.
And I don't see that happening.
Nope.
But again, John Carpenter, though, fantastic score in this movie. There's a really great score from Carpenter.
Really great score he did himself, which, you know, kind of one of his things. Have either of you seen the music video for the song he did called Big Trouble in Little China? That's like Tim and two other directors basically had a band and they played it. And the music video is just like, clearly a lot of cocaine or something was involved in that music video.
Yep.
We actually, we just watched it right before you came on to record. I was showing Brian and I'm like, you have to watch this. He's like, what is it? I'm like, it's the music video for Big Trouble in Little China and Carpenter's in it.
Oh,
you
man.
can definitely tell that that's him. Yep. At least he doesn't look as coked out of his mind in that as Stephen King did for the trailer for Maximum Overdrive.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. But that's hard to top. Most people would die from that much coke. Yeah.
Not unless you're Keith Richards.
Yeah, you'd have to be at that level where you're like immortal. Like, yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Oh.
it's funny now that I say that out loud. I'm kind of surprised that we haven't heard that Keith Richards beat COVID, because COVID's even scared of Keith Richards.
COVID's like, I don't want to go anywhere near those veins. I know what's been in there.
Yep.
The world will just end with Keith Richards and Betty White, coming across each other in a blasted wasteland with swords, going, there can be only one.
Is this the remake of Highlander?
God, I hope so.
I'm okay with that.
All right. Let's wrap this thing up here. That has been our discussion of Big Trouble in Little China. Go check it out if you have not. High recommend from all of us here on the show. I think this is definitely one of our go-tos here and one of our favorite Russells all around. So definitely go check it out if you haven't, or give it a rewatch if you have not watched it in a while.
Definitely.
Let's let the people know where they can find this podcast. You can find this podcast and give us a nice big subscribe and a rating on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and to see our lovely faces, you can find us on YouTube as well. And if you'd like, you can go check us out on backlot605.com. The podcast is available there. We also have written reviews, articles, the coming soon articles, movie reviews. Everything is on backlot605.com. And then also check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/backlot605. We actually have 2 bonus episodes for our $5 patrons this month, where me and Brian talked about used cars. Kurt Russell teaming up with Robert Zemeckis in a very early 80s comedy. And we also talked about Kurt Russell and Mrs. Claus, Goldie Hawn, as they teamed up for Overboard in the classic comedy that is. So if you would like to go check those out, check us out on patreon.com/backlot605. And we do have to give a shout out to our patrons, Logan, Blake, Derek, Corey, Lou, and Andy. Thank you guys so much for being patrons of the show.
Yeah.
Brian, where can they find us on the social medias?
We try to be sociable out there. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram here. You can also check us out. Oh, and of those, that's all Backlot 605. You can also check us out on Facebook in our South Dakota Film Community group, where we like to just chit-chat about movies and see what's going on in everybody's lives and what we're watching and how's it all going.
Yes, so you can go check us out there on all the social medias. And Robert, where can they find you and your show, the Sioux Empire Podcast?
Well, they can find that at the aptly named the Sioux Empire Podcast.com. You can listen to us on SoundCloud, Stitcher, all the podcast catchers. We're out there. If you like stories about South Dakota history, little known kind of obscure history with a little bit of an audio drama kind of flair added to it, that's what we're all about on that podcast. And then we're also out there on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and pretty active on Instagram. So check us out.
Absolutely, go check it out. And I mean, two of the episodes I've really enjoyed is your episode on hemp in South Dakota. It's very, very informative, especially with what has recently passed in South Dakota with the new marijuana laws. That is for me, that's a must listen to now for South Dakota residents. That show. And then for October, you did a ghost and scary stories type of episode for South Dakota. I'm like, yep, that's right up my alley. I love that. I love it.
Oh yeah. Frontier ghost stories pulled from the newspapers. Can't beat that.
I love it. So yes, go check out Robert on the Sioux Empire Podcast. And Robert, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a blast. I'm glad we got you on the show, and glad we talked some Big Trouble in Little China.
Absolutely pleasure to be on. And Casey, Brian, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rob. And one last thing we do got to leave people off with is next week we are kicking off David Fincher month. For the month of not November, December. We're doing five weeks of David Fincher movies. It is a big month. We are talking some big movies, and we are kicking it off next week with David Fincher's 7. So that'll be
I think you're going to go with Alien 3. No.
That's not on the docket, but if our patrons want us to talk Alien 3, I guess that is an option. So good luck to us, I guess. So again, kicking off David Fincher month next week. So until then, once again, thank you, Robert, for joining us on the show. For Brian Mensing, I'm Casey Kelderman, and we will check you guys out next time on the Backlot of South Dakota.
Bye-bye.